The first sound I hear isn't "Welcome home." It's a shriek, slicing through the thin Colorado air like a razor. "You stole this from me." I'm standing in my own driveway, the scent of pine and fresh-cut grass doing nothing to mask the acid tang of pure rage. My suitcase is still at my feet. The flight from Seattle is a fog in my mind. And standing 3 feet from me, a woman with a perfectly coiffed silver bob is vibrating with a fury so intense, I half expect the pavement to crack. This is Martha Perez, HOA President. And she's fencing with a stack of legal documents, thrusting them toward my chest like a swordsman. "You think you can just waltz back here after 10 years and take what's mine?" she screams, her voice echoing off the identical beige facades of the houses on Cherry Lane. Blinds twitch. A curtain drops. An audience is forming. I'm a software architect. I deal in logic in clean code and cleaner outcomes. This is a runtime error in the fabric of reality. My grandma, Betty, left me this house. Her will is clear. But Martha's performance is so visceral, so unhinged, that for a terrifying second, I doubt my own sanity. If you've ever had a neighbor this certifiably nuts, go ahead and type "unhinged" in the comments. Let's see who wins the crown for most unhinged. Now, let me rewind the tape. The crazy didn't start at full volume. I left this quiet suburb a decade ago, chasing silicon dreams and perpetual drizzle. My grandma, Betty, was my anchor here, sharp, stubborn, and full of folksy wisdom that usually held a deeper truth. The call from David, our family lawyer, was a gut punch. "Robert, you need to come back now. There are complications with Betty's estate." Complications. The word felt like a spider crawling down my spine. Rolling up to the house hours later, the sunset painted the Rockies in hues of fire and violet. But something was off. The garden was a museum piece, manicured, mulched, and utterly sterile. It was too perfect. Inside, however, was a time capsule. A fine layer of dust coated everything. The floral couch, the old photos, the poker chips still scattered on the kitchen table. It was as if Betty had just stepped out for groceries and forgotten to come back. And then I saw it. An envelope on the counter, David's handwriting, urgent. My hands trembled as I tore it open. A property tax notice. Final warning. Angry, red letters. $8,000 in back taxes. Pay in 15 days, or the county seizes everything. Stapled to it was a second notice from the county clerk. Ownership dispute. A certain Martha Perez had filed an affidavit, asserting no legitimate heir exists, and petitioning to have the property labeled abandoned. I was boxed in. I couldn't pay the taxes until I proved I was the heir, and untangling that legal knot would take longer than 15 days. Martha hadn't just set a trap. She designed a perfect, inescapable labyrinth. My call to David went straight to a whispered confession. "Robert, keep your head down. Meet me first thing. Trust no one. Especially not Martha." Betty didn't. The line went dead. My subsequent calls rang into the void. That night, at 3 a.m., I tore through Betty's belongings, not just looking for answers, but for a piece of her. The anger came then, hot and shameful. Anger at her for leaving me this mess. Anger at this Martha, sleeping soundly in her house just 2 doors down. That's when I found it. A photo of us on the porch from a decade ago. The backing was loose. Inside, a velvet pouch holding a heavy, silver key, roses engraved along its shaft. And a note, in Betty's once elegant, now shaky script. For Robert. When shadows fall east at 4:30 in October, the truth shows clear. First National Bank, Box 347. Don't trust anyone till you see what I saved. A second, crumpled note mentioned Martha's obsession with a necklace, always asking about it, even watching Betty through the kitchen window. My grandma wasn't just sentimental, she was a strategist. She'd seen the end coming and left me a scavenger hunt. Dawn broke, and so did the storm. Martha marched across my lawn, a smile on her face that didn't reach her cold eyes. She presented a caretaker agreement, promising her the land for her services. You abandoned her, Robert. That's abandonment. Colorado law says 10 years gone is adverse possession. I kept my voice calm. I'm her grandson. I have her will. But her signature on the agreement, it was too perfect. Betty's arthritis had been so bad, she could barely hold a pen. This was a forgery. As she strutted away, victorious, I saw an old woman across the street, her phone pressed flat against her window pane, silently recording everything. She met my gaze and gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod.
An ally.
Betty's final gift. The bureaucratic assault began. 3 violation notices stapled to my door. Unpermitted porch changes, hazardous landscaping, illegal occupancy. $500 in fines, 72 hours to comply. A board inspector showed up, gestured vaguely at Martha's house, and muttered, 23 complaints from her this year alone. I'll mark M invalid, but appeals take 2 weeks. Time I didn't have. This was death by 1,000 paper cuts. Then, an email from an unknown address. Betty asked me to save these at gmail.com. Attached was a night vision video file. Time-stamped 3:47 a.m. It showed Martha, dressed in black, digging up and dragging the iron property markers 3 feet onto Betty's land. Stealing my ground literally inch by inch. I checked the soil. Fresh paint. Disturbed earth. She had stolen 3 feet of my property. And now I had proof. I posted the video to the neighborhood Facebook group, thinking truth was a shield. I didn't know it was just the first move in a much darker game. My evidence detonated, but the shrapnel hit me. The comments were a bloodbath. Where were you when Betty needed you? Martha is a pillar of this community. These videos could be easily faked. I was the outsider, the Seattle tech bro trying to cash in. The HOA's compliance officer, a man named Frank, became Martha's attack dog. My trash bins were an inch out of place. My grass was a millimeter too long. My car was parked the wrong way. Petty, paralyzing violations stacked up like a wall around me. The final blow came via a legal notification. Martha had filed for a protective order, claiming I was harassing her. If granted, I'd be banned from the property for 30 days, just long enough for the county to seize it for the unpaid taxes. Game over. I stormed into David's office. It was a wreck, and so was he. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. Without a word, he slid a folder across his desk. Photos of him at underground poker games. IOUs.
Threats.
Blackmail. All courtesy of Martha. All she wanted from him was delays. Enough time to build her adverse possession case, file complaints, and fake a paper trail. I was scared for my family, Robert, he whispered, his voice hollow. But I'm done. I'm done being her pawn. He gave me the key piece. She's not just stealing property, Robert. She's running a business. Patterson Gardens. Colorado's hidden gem, wedding venue. It was all there. A fully registered LLC. A website with testimonials. A booking calendar, packed. The hazardous landscaping was Betty's prize-winning rose garden, the centerpiece for ceremonies she charged $8,200 for. The vendors I saw on my first day, they were prepping for a wedding. My grandma's legacy was being monetized by her murderer. The cold rage returned, sharper than ever. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about justice. The day of the wedding, I didn't bring a gift. I brought a war. I waited until the ceremony was about to start. The bride was radiant, the groom beaming. Martha was standing to the side, a maestro of her own deceit. I walked straight down the aisle, my heart hammering against my ribs. I'm sorry to interrupt, I said, my voice cutting through the string quartet. My name is Robert, and this is my property. Martha Perez has no legal right to be here, and she has fraudulently rented this land to you. The silence was absolute, then shattered into chaos. The bride burst into tears. The groom started shouting. Guests pulled out their phones, live-streaming the entire meltdown. Martha's face turned purple, her screams lost in the din. When the police arrived, they shrugged. Civil matter. Wedding's over. Everyone out. The story was already going viral. Hashtag HOA wedding scam started trending locally. But the masterstroke was still to come. With the house finally empty, I used the silver key at First National Bank. Box 347 was Betty's war chest. It was all there. Original survey maps. Receipts Martha had claimed as maintenance that were actually for wedding chairs and floral arches. A page where Martha had practiced Betty's signature over and over. And a USB drive labeled for Robert. Listen first. I plugged it in. Betty's voice, clear and strong, filled the car. I knew Martha would try to say, "I was confused, Robert. I had the doctor test my memory every visit. You have what you need to win. Trust Susan." The timing. She even explained the shadow clue, an old-school surveying trick to prove the true property line in court. We marched into the next HOA meeting. Martha had a slick presentation, full of forged receipts and glowing testimonials. She had the crowd. Then I stood up. My grandmother would like a word. I played Betty's recording. The room froze. Then I cued Susan's videos on the projector. Night vision marker theft. Audio of Martha applauding with a vendor. I showed the forged signature practice sheet. The room turned. Gasps turned to angry murmurs. Frank, the compliance officer, stood up, his face pale. "I quit. I will not be used like this." He walked out. Martha's empire of lies crumbled in 5 minutes. The courtroom was the final act. Martha's hired psychiatrist was exposed by David as a fraud with an expired license. Susan's testimony and the shadow line evidence dismantled the adverse possession claim. The judge ruled in my favor, condemning Martha's egregious and predatory fraud and referring the case to the district attorney. The payment to the county cleared with hours to spare. The house was mine. The neighbors, once my accusers, built a memorial garden for Betty. Frank helped me draft Betty's protocols, new HOA rules mandating mediation, and independent legal review. We restored the fence, GPS tagged the markers, and replanted her roses. Martha was ordered to pay $71,000 in restitution. She skipped town, her face forever tied to scam articles, a ghost in the machine she tried to manipulate. This spring, I stood by the fence as the shadows fell east at 4:30, the silver key cool against my chest. The house was truly mine. Betty played chess, while Martha played checkers. And in the end, patience, documentation, and one badass grandma beat deception every single time. So let me ask you, in the fight between common sense and manipulation, who really wins? Drop your own justice stories below. And if you believe karma always collects its debt, hit that like button.